Alright, welcome back to a Spongebob tier list. This time we're doing seasonal rot, obviously just with the main characters, because you can't judge side characters on how much they rot. If they only appeared in only 1 or 2 episodes, it can't really be judged. So we're just going to do these main characters and see how much they've rot over time. Obviously, highest will be they didn't rot that much. Bottom here, they've rot to hell. So, we're going to start in the order that it's in. Mr. Krabs. Now, Mr. Krabs, in the early seasons, was a really solid boss. He was still kind of cheap, but it wasn't overbearing. He cared for his crewmates. We've seen him fight thick and thin through them and help them and protect them. In later seasons, I think the one that actually really disturbed me, if you guys remember that episode where there was that art critic, and they told him that Squidward's art would be worth more if he were to die. And Mr. Krabs literally spends the whole episode trying to murder Squidward. Like, there's no joke involved, there's no there's no emphasis. He's literally trying to kill Squidward to make money off his art because it'll be worth more because he's dead. I think that one turned me off the episode, or just the show entirely, for a long time, because that was really disgusting. To levels I think should have been talked more. I might even do a whole review on that, because that was a really, really bad episode. And that's kind of what the characters become, where he's just all about that bottom dollar. He doesn't really care about anything else but money. It's become his only character trait over the years. And it's unfortunate, because he was actually a really good character in the beginning. I really liked him. I think he's actually rot way down to the worst. I've never seen a character like that in any other episode or show that has fallen that badly. He's got none of his original traits. It's really unfortunate. Sandy Cheeks, in early seasons, Tea in the Tree Dome, stuff like that, was mostly calm, scientist, karate type of deal. She hasn't changed all that much, except they really took that and made her whole character. She's either science. I don't even think she does karate anymore. Gotta think of it. When's the last time you even seen her do any karate? It's basically like she'll make a karate sound to do one thing, like kick down a door, and then that's it. Either that, or she's just a scientist that doesn't really know how to do science because her invention is failing and something like that. But she hasn't necessarily gotten wrong. Like, she still cares for her friends, even though a couple episodes come to mind. That one where they were doing that Trump experiment, see how it affected them, and she was experimenting on SpongeBob and Patrick ends up growing like a second head on his forehead, stuff like that. I think that was kind of cruel, but obviously, it's whatever, still science. I don't think she's gotten that far. I think that her character's gone down. She doesn't really have much of a personality. She's just the scientist or the smart one sometimes in the episodes, but it really hasn't been that bad. Still a decently good character, especially in some episodes. If anybody watched that dreadful movie, which I really didn't want to come out, especially after, Hillenburg, but, she was the one that stands up for SpongeBob and everything, so she's still kind of there. I'd say she hasn't rotted that much. She's okay. Patrick Star. Patrick Star was SpongeBob's best friend. He was mellow. He was still kind of dumb, but he wasn't like doesn't know what's going on dumb. He was just not the brightest. Loved his friends. Didn't really know that he was annoying. Didn't really know anything, come to think of it. Now, in the later seasons, he's actually become more of an antagonist than a protagonist. Anytime he's in an episode, I think it all started from that one episode where he ate at the Krusty Krab for free, and then they had him work for the Krusty Krab, and he ends up just doing more damage. He kind of does that now in every episode he's in, and sometimes it's really, really bad. Probably one of the worst episodes I've ever seen was I can't remember the name, but where they're trying to fight over that toy Krabby Patty. And that whole episode, Patrick was just a douche. Just terrible. Like, he was awful to SpongeBob, didn't share with him, and when SpongeBob finally got a turn, finally got a hold of it, he took it and he ate it. If he can't have it, no one can, and the whole thing was paid by SpongeBob's wallet to begin with, and he ate the whole meal by himself. SpongeBob didn't get any, and I was like, man, this character really, really, really fell off the rails. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they're just not friends anymore. This character is really something else. Honestly, I don't know if it's murder levels of rot. It's pretty damn close, though. Pretty close. Pretty close. SpongeBob SquarePants, the main character, has had a lot of time over the seasons. Obviously, being the main character, we see it the most. It's very apparent how much the character has changed from the beginning to the end, and that happens with any kind of show, right? You can't always be the same forever, especially a show that's gone on for that long. You know, you're bound to run out of ideas, run out of inspirations. But SpongeBob, when he first started, was a pretty interesting character. In the way that he didn't know everything. You know, he did a lot of learning, in fact. Like, even one of his first episodes was Sandy, where he was learning about, you know, the life of having an air breather underwater and stuff like that, and then learning karate and then stuff like that. And especially, he had his shortcomings, right? He was an underdog, and no one expected him to be a good fry cook. When he came up to the Krusty Krab for the first time, they thought no chance, right? And he kind of showed them up. And yeah, he was a really solid character. He had his shortcomings, which was a good thing. You know, especially, we all know his boating. He can't drive to save his life, which is a good thing. He had a lot of qualities that brought him back that we can watch and see if he grows or he doesn't, right? If he improves on that or he doesn't. Now, in later seasons, he's kind of just... he's quite literally a main character, right? He can do anything and get away with it, especially his interactions with Squidward. You know, in early seasons, SpongeBob would unknowingly annoy Squidward. Or Squidward would be doing something terrible to SpongeBob, and he would get his comeuppance later on, and that's what kind of made it funny, was that he was the bully. But I'll save that more for when I actually get to Squidward. As for SpongeBob, nowadays, the way he interacts with him, he's just in Squidward's face too much. In fact, it's almost uncomfortable for a lot of episodes. Like, especially that one where, if you guys remember, it wasn't even too late into SpongeBob, where he's been trying to get Squidward to go over to his house for a visit. And he literally begs him all day. We get to see a clip show of him holding on to Squidward when he's off work, or he's at dinner, and he's trying to go home, and he's holding on to him the whole time. And it gets even creepier than that, because he then goes... he finally agrees to go over to SpongeBob's house for a visit because SpongeBob stole his vacuum cleaner. And then Squidward goes over to his house, and SpongeBob literally copied his house to a T. Every crack in the wall, every stitching on a pillow, every coaster, every detail, every color was like... that is not even... that's creepy. That's beyond creepy. Like, creepy is an understatement. Like, imagine if, you know, someone's been trying to invite you to your house, and even if it's just like a good friend of yours, right? Really good friend of yours. And he's such a good friend of yours, he was able to copy every single detail of your house down to the wire. Even if you have a freaking McDonald's cup on a table, he's got that down exactly where you had it, stuff like that. Would you feel creeped out? Because I feel you would. I know I certainly would be. And that is not healthy. That's not a good character. Aside from that, his character traits are, he's very annoying, he's childish, and he's fruity. I don't even remember the last time he said I'm ready or he went jellyfishing. He's bad at driving, he's very annoying, and he gets away with it because he's the main character. And when he's being annoying, characters get hurt when they try to go against him for being annoying. When before, it was just that he didn't know it was annoying, or that he was too immature to know it was annoying. But now it's like, he just does things, and if anyone goes against him, they get hurt by the universe. It's kind of really crappy. I'd say he dropped down a lot. A lot. The character is always iconic. I grew up watching SpongeBob, but the SpongeBob of today is really, really upsetting. Again, to drop down that much, you'd have to do a lot of damage, but I'm gonna say that he didn't drop down that far. Squidward Tentacles. Now he's kind of interesting. He's a really hard one to judge because he necessarily didn't get worse as much as the way that the show interacts with him got worse. In earlier seasons, what would happen typically was Squidward was the Grouch, right? The Grouch of the whole thing. Like Patrick and SpongeBob are having fun, like the snowball fight, for example, right? And that would bug him. So then he would have to go out there and try to instigate it. You know, say, "Oh no, you guys should try to purposely hurt each other. That's how you do it. You don't do it like this. You try to hurt each other." And he you know, he's watching because he wants to see them, quote unquote, you know, knock their brain out, kind of deal. And then he ends up getting his comeuppance in the end when they were not doing anything wrong, and he got in there and made it wrong, and then he gets hurt for it. And that's why it worked, is because he was the one that did wrong. Nowadays, it's basically SpongeBob and Patrick annoy the crap out of him. He finally can't take it, and he's like, "Leave me alone," and then he gets hurt. And it's like, it's not really the point, you know what I mean? Like, he's supposed to be the one that makes it supposed to go against him, but in these seasons he's actually kind of innocent. He doesn't do anything other than he doesn't take it up the arse when they're annoying the hell out of him, and then he gets hurt. So yeah, not particularly. He didn't rot as much in the later episodes. He kind of had the Sandy effect, where what he was is kind of become his character traits. He's all about his clarinet and how much he hates his job and art. And that's basically the character. I hate my job, I hate people, clarinet, and art. That's all he is. He doesn't really do anything outside of that. But I don't think that he necessarily rotted as much as the show around him doesn't work with his dynamic, because he doesn't really instigate them anymore. He just gets hurt for no reason, and it's supposed to be funny because it's Squidward, and it's not. It's just not. Yeah, I don't think that he really changed all that much. Barnacle Boy doesn't appear that much. These characters haven't really changed. We've seen a couple episodes with them reappearing again. They're still the same idea. They don't really have that much differential. In fact, they're actually kind of nicer. Like, I remember the one episode where they do the time traveling thing. Everything that they did was justified, right? Like, it started with their invisible boatmobile was not working, or they're out of gas or something like that, and SpongeBob and Patrick end up pushing it all the way back to the cave. And to reward them, they showed them their, trophies, from all their battles and stuff like that. And because SpongeBob and Patrick are SpongeBob and Patrick, they ended up taking them back in time, and things go crappy, and they only get mad when they really need to, because they just messed with something. They time traveled and caused all sorts of issues, and then they get upset. And in the end, they still end up helping them anyway. So it's kind of like, you know what? They're alright. I'm going to just say that for Mermaid Man 2, because you never see them apart. They're always the same. Oh, his is a white background for some reason. I guess he's not as important. I mean, Barnacle Boy's not looking too much better, but that's fine. Gary the Snail. Okay, Gary kind of lost all personality. In earlier seasons, one that comes to mind is Gary Takes a Bath. He was kind of a jerk in that episode, but that's okay, because it was kind of his personality, right? He had his own motives. He wasn't just a pet, he had his own way. Sometimes he was a great pet. Sometimes he was, like I said in that episode, he was really, really rude. All SpongeBob was trying to do was bathe him, and he causes him all sorts of grief. But he is a pet. We all have been there. In later seasons, he's kind of literally just a pet. That's all he does. He hardly appears anymore to begin with, but when he does, he just acts like a pet. And like a cat too. It's usually SpongeBob's doing something annoying, so he'll like just hide in his shell from his annoyingness and, you know, get angry with him for being annoying and just move away or something. So not like it was a drastic problem, but it wasn't just that he didn't get worse, he kind of lost any kind of other personality. So he's not 100% gone to crap, but he just lost any kind of personality, so he just went flat, I suppose. Karen, the supercomputer. Okay, this character is kind of interesting. It kind of goes in and out. In and out, in and out, in and out. Because in early seasons, Karen was just that. It was a computer mounted to the wall. And then the first time we got to see a portable Karen, you know, started to further her character. And she was always just this wife to Plankton. She was kind of a nag, always, but not really that extreme. And then as the show went on, I think they tried to make her more human, which worked against it. Like, we all remember the anniversary episode and stuff like that, which was fine. It all worked out. It was a good episode. And then they kind of go back to, oh, but she's a computer, and that's why it doesn't work out. Like, that whole anniversary episode, it's because, oh, she wants Plankton to finally do something special for her anniversary. And then he does. He ends up getting SpongeBob's help, and he finally does do that anniversary, and it all works out. And then she ends up crying tears of joy, and that fries her up. So it's kind of like they want her to be human, and then when she's human, that's what causes her to have the issues, because she's a computer. Not the worst thing in the world. I also think that she's, you know what, honestly, something I just came across. She's actually kind of become heartless to Plankton. A lot of times she just kicks him out or doesn't care that he's in pain. She kind of is not really a wife to him, just nags him and doesn't give a shit. So I don't know. She's definitely not here. But I would say that she's kind of joined their ranks. She's not who she was. And that's fine to change and evolve, but she didn't. She went the other way. Mrs. Puff. Mrs. Puff might actually join the bottom ranks. Kind of the same thing, but in a different aspect. In the early seasons, Mrs. Puff was just the boating teacher. SpongeBob was a student that just is unteachable. That was the whole thing. Oh, he's unteachable. And it went from her trying to just get him to pass the class and not deal with him anymore, to hating when every time he shows up and she's, oh god, oh no, and he's always getting hurt and stuff like that. And then it goes all the way up to an episode, I think it's called Demolition Doofus, where again she not rightfully so, but she was quite pissed with SpongeBob because he got into an accident which deflated her. She was in the hospital. She couldn't puff anymore, which is a really dark episode when you think about it. That's basically like SpongeBob paralyzed her, but we're not going to go there yet. And so to get revenge, she encourages SpongeBob to do demolition, and the whole time she's kind of laughing because she wants SpongeBob to die in this thing. She doesn't want him to get hurt. She doesn't want revenge. Like, she doesn't want him to get hurt like she was. She literally wants him to die. And she, in the own episode, says in the worst possible way and pictures his tombstone out there on the track. And it's like, wow. It went from not wanting not wanting to teach him, to just wanting him to pass and get out of here, to just not wanting to be around him, to wanting him to die. And that is, and actually goes as far, because even in that episode, when she realized he wasn't even dying by the demolition, she gets in there herself and tries to run him over herself to try to kill him. So that's just holy crud. Yeah, honestly, I would say that's just as bad. That's really, really wrought over the years. Larry the Lobster, we've kind of gone over this concept, but he did what basically these two did. He became all one personality. He's big, and he's a bro, and he's a Chad, he's a whatever you call it. He knows nothing else but muscle, which is unfortunate because he actually had quite a few good episodes, especially when he started to do a gym and stuff like that. But there's a bit of charm kind of lost to the character, I would say. It's not as, like I think of episodes like Living Like Larry, where he has that kind of macho, but he actually teaches them a lesson at the end where living like Larry does not mean do dangerous stuff, do all these things that I do. It means to live life to the fullest. Whatever fullest yours is doesn't mean it has to be what mine is. He doesn't really have that anymore. Now he's just kind of a meathead type character, and it's not the worst thing in the world. He's kind of just gonna go here. It's not the worst thing in the world. He just used to have a lot more pizzazz to him. I don't even know why this is here, but let's talk about the opening pirate. I hope they don't try to say that that's Patchy, because I'm pretty sure that's not actually canon, that's Patchy. If we're talking about Patchy, then I don't even know where I'd put Patchy. I don't know why he's not here, unless they're trying to call this Patchy, which again, I don't think is the case. If we're talking about Patchy, then Patchy hasn't really changed. He'd be like somewhere here. But if we're talking about this, then this literally has not changed. So I guess it's okay. Pearl. She did this, but worse. In early seasons, she was just the daughter to Mr. Krabs, trying to do different things. Wasn't really the best at anything. But she had her moments. She had, her own things going sometimes, and sometimes she put Mr. Krabs in his place when he was being a cheapskate. Like I think about the sleepover episode, very iconic one, where finally she breaks through to him because Mr. Krabs was being too cheap. She's trying to have a sleepover with her friends. And he's offering them like crackers and water, and if they want pizza, just put ketchup packets on the crackers, and it's like, no. So she ends up taking over the house and having it anyway, and the whole episode revolves around Spongebob trying to get in there and whatever. And the reason why that worked was because it was Spongebob that caused all the damage, not Pearl. And in the end, Pearl finally gets that party. They're not allowed, and it cost Mr. Krabs in the end for trying to ruin it all. Great episode, and all the characters did their roles correctly. In later seasons, she's always the same thing. She cries a lot, she needs more money, she's all about fashion and shoes, and yay. So what was once a kind of a interesting dynamic has just become blah. But unlike these, she had quite a lot of good qualities. I'm not saying that they didn't, but she honestly could have been a very solid main character. Especially with Mr. Krabs the way he is now, she could have been a harmonizing voice to kind of mellow things. I honestly say she's a little bit more disappointing than these. I'm going to say that she's here. Kind of like Gary, she lost all of her personality, and she's just flat. And finally, the show's main villain, Plankton, or Sheldon rather. in early seasons, he was nefarious, he was creative with his plans, and now he's going to steal it and things like that. He was pure evil and stuff like that. In later episodes, he didn't... I don't want to say he changed too much. He's still kind of the same thing. His holy purpose is just to try to steal. But he's had episodes where he's kind of been a little different. He's not as creative anymore, and honestly, whenever he appears in new episodes, he's usually in there for like 10 seconds to quickly fail at stealing the formula, and then that's over with. But again, I don't think that's a character problem as much as it is just the show. But him as the character hasn't changed too much. Still a villain, still after one goal. But he did back in the day have quite some personality, especially when we got to see the side where Plankton and him were friends. It was a really good episode, really iconic. And it just showed a different side to him. And it's kind of been retained a little bit. He's not always just evil, 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 evil. So he hasn't rotted to just one character trait like a lot of other characters. He still kind of does have his mixes, like we talked about the anniversary episode, where he learns to feel, kind of reminiscent of, you know, Spongebob trying to teach him the fun song and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd say he's still kind of the same, if not just a little bit milder, but it's not that big an issue, especially when you compare it to the rest. So I say he's here. And that would be it. So I'm pretty happy with this list, especially after explaining everything. I think it's a fairly accurate and in-depth list on which characters rotted the most. I know some will say I should have done this list backwards to say that the top row should have been the characters that rotted the most and the bottom, but to me, I'm kind of making it more of a where they are now type deal. But yeah, it went from characters that didn't change too much to characters that didn't just not become who they were, but something completely horrible. And I think that this is pretty accurate. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you think I'm wrong about anything, by all means, I'm happy to hear it. I can redo a list, and leave a suggestion if you have a different list that you want me to do on these characters. With that being said, have a good one.